For more on this, biodiversity, let's talk to Bradley Cardinale. He is a professor and head of ecosystem science and management at Penn State University. Good to see you, sir. Let me start with water. We have record lows amount of water, as you may have heard, from California all the way to where the Grand Canyon is and in other parts of the Southwest. What is going on?
Well, I think a lot of that is fluctuations that are driven by climate change. So as the Earth heats up, we get greater amounts of water through evapotranspiration or evaporation that is redistributed, and we also get greater amounts of rainfall. And the predictions are that some of these extremes are going to get greater, both in terms of precipitation as well as in terms of droughts. So things that used to seem normal are going to start seeming abnormal from now on.
But one so-called expert told me that the water loss goes back into the clouds and skies and comes back down again and somehow ends up in the ocean. Explain to me why that is or isn't true.
Well, I think that is part of the hydrologic cycle. So as water evaporates or there's transpiration from plants and it goes in the atmosphere, it's redistributed. It falls someplace else, flows down rivers and streams out to the oceans, and ultimately winds up there until it evaporates from the ocean and is transported back to land. So I think the redistribution of water is a really key outcome of climate change that's going to predict that predicts there will be some people that are going to get more water and some are going to get less.
Right. So the redistribution of water is not going to the places that we thought they were going to go to, and thus the shortage. So how do we, as humans, I don't want to use the word fix, but how do we mitigate this?
Well, one way to do it is to reallocate your water distribution patterns. So for instance, in California, limits on water use, or in Arizona, where you just stop growing lawns and live more closely within the means of the water and the hydrologic cycle in that area. That's one way to do it. Of course, another way to do it is to build pipes all over the place and redistribute water where it's abundant to places that it's less abundant. And I imagine we're going to do some combination of those two.
Do you think the general public, look, obviously we are talking about it, and I know other networks are talking about it, but I haven't heard a lot of action, so to speak, to deal with this except from local governments. It seems like local governments are doing more than the national government. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I think that's true. I'm not an expert on water policy, but I do think that the policies are driven by local needs. And, when you have a farm where your crops are suffering as a result of drought, or you're in a place where your reservoir and drinking water seems to be drying up, that's, of course, where the greatest outcries occur. So local policy from a bottom-up process will drive larger state policies and ultimately national policy.
I have looked at pictures of what's happening in some of the reservoirs, if you want. I'm sure you've seen the same ones where they're reaching historic lows. You see boats sitting on sand. It is a scary scene when you look at it. And at some point, they're saying it just keeps going down. And eventually, take Las Vegas, for example. They're not going to have water, apparently, in a couple of years at the rate they're going at now. So what is the solution to all this? Because you can use less water, but at the end result is that has a huge impact on a place of major cities.
Yeah, I agree. And frankly, I think we should have thought about that about 100 years ago before we developed a super large metropolis in the middle of a desert. But now that we have a large metropolis in the middle of a desert, I think that those water conservation measures are going to play a key role. We can't continue to withdraw more water than that part of the country has through precipitation and snow and rain. And then we may have to do some redistribution as well from other places that are abundant in water. And we'll see if the local communities around, let's say, the Great Lakes want to give up their water supply so that Las Vegas can survive. That will be an interesting fight.
Right, hence all the pipes. I mean, this is such a huge problem. I don't even know where to begin. But Professor, I thank you for sharing your thoughts with us, and I look forward to having you again on this important topic.